The emergency lights flashed red across the council chamber. Taemin stood before the assembled representatives, his hands shaking slightly as he held the data pad. He had delivered reports to the Galactic Council many times before, but never anything like this. "They've done it," he said quietly. "The humans have achieved faster-than-light travel without our jump gates." The chamber erupted in noise. 12 different species began talking at once, their various forms of communication creating a chaos of sound. Some clicked, some hummed, some spoke in frequencies barely audible to others. Chancellor Vorthek, an ancient being who had led the council for 3 centuries, raised one massive appendage. Silence fell immediately. "Explain," Vorthek commanded. Taemin activated the holographic display. Images of human ships appeared in the center of the chamber, rotating slowly. They were sleek vessels, nothing like the bulky council ships that relied on the ancient Jumpgate network. "We've been watching Earth for 600 years," Taemin began. "Following standard protocols, we waited for them to reach the appropriate development threshold before making contact. But something unexpected happened. They didn't follow the normal progression." He pulled up charts showing technological advancement timelines. Every other species in the galaxy followed similar patterns. It took most civilizations 10,000 years to go from discovering fire to achieving spaceflight. The fastest species on record had done it in 5,000 years. Humans did it in 10,000 years total, Taemin said. "But the acceleration is what concerns us. They went from basic combustion engines to quantum computers in just 200 years. They achieved nuclear fission, then fusion, then zero-point energy in less than 3 centuries. Impossible," someone muttered from the back of the chamber. "We thought so too," Taemin replied, "but we've confirmed it. 7 human colonies now exist across 4 star systems. They have massive orbital stations, defensive grids, and ships that our sensors barely understand. They're not using conventional FTL drives. Their ships seem to fold space itself." Jiwon, the council's intelligence director, leaned forward in her seat. She was younger than most council members, having only served for 40 years. "How did we miss this? We had observation posts monitoring Earth." "They moved faster than we anticipated," Taemin admitted. "By the time we realized they'd achieved spaceflight, they already had colony ships launching. We expected decades of primitive orbital exploration. Instead, they went from first Mars landing to interstellar colony in 30 years. Chancellor Vorthek was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "Initiate first contact protocols. Send Admiral Hyunwoo with the standard greeting fleet. This is irregular, but they've clearly reached the threshold. Bring them into the council." Hyunwoo stepped forward. He was a veteran of 30 first contact missions, representing the Corellian Star Command. Every species he'd contacted had responded the same way. First came fear, then awe, then grateful acceptance of council membership and protection. The galaxy was a dangerous place. Young species needed guidance. "I'll prepare the fleet immediately," Hyunwoo said. "Standard approach? 40 ships, peaceful formation, translated greetings in their primary languages?" "Yes," Vorthek agreed. "Make it clear we come in friendship. Offer them the standard package. Technology sharing, protection, trade rights, and a junior seat on the council. They'll be grateful." 3 weeks later, Hyunwoo's fleet arrived at the edge of human territory near Proxima Centauri. The admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the view screen with growing confusion. "Are those defense platforms?" his tactical officer asked. 40 of them, another officer confirmed, surrounding the colony world. Energy signatures we don't recognize. "And those ships?" Hyunwoo pointed at 6 vessels maintaining patrol patterns around the system. "Unknown design, sir. They're not using ion drives or plasma propulsion. We can't identify their engine type." Hyunwoo frowned. This was wrong. First contact species weren't supposed to have advanced defense networks. They were supposed to have a few primitive ships at most. "Open communications," he ordered. "All human frequencies. Transmit the greeting in their languages." The communications officer worked for several minutes, then looked up in surprise. "Sir, we're receiving a response already. They're using quantum entanglement communication." "How did they put it through?" Hyunwoo interrupted. The view screen changed to show a human woman in a crisp uniform. She smiled politely. "Hello. This is Commander Dayun of the Proxima Defense Force. We've received your greeting. Thank you for your interest in establishing contact with humanity." Hyunwoo stepped forward, giving the traditional council greeting gesture. I am Admiral Hyan Wu of the Galactic Council. We come in peace to welcome humanity into the galactic community. We offer friendship, protection, and membership in the oldest and greatest alliance in known space. Dayun's smile never wavered. We appreciate that, Admiral. We've actually been aware of the Council's existence for some time. We picked up your observation post about 20 years ago. Hyan Wu felt his confidence slip. They'd known. For 20 years? We've been studying the Council's structure, laws, and treaties, Dayun continued. It's all very impressive. You've maintained peace across thousands of systems for millennia. That's quite an achievement. Then you understand the benefits of membership, Hyan Wu said, regaining his composure. As a young species, you'll need guidance, protection from hostile forces, and access to technologies that will take you centuries to develop alone. That's very kind, Dayun said. But we'll have to decline for now. Silence filled the bridge. Hyan Wu stared at the screen, certain he'd misheard. Decline? Yes, we're not ready to join the Council at this time. We prefer to continue our independent development. But we're certainly open to diplomatic relations, trade discussions, and cultural exchanges when you're ready. We'll contact you soon to arrange formal meetings. You don't understand, Hyan Wu said, trying to keep his voice level. Every species joins the Council. It's how galactic civilization works. Without Council protection, you're vulnerable to pirates, hostile species, cosmic hazards. We appreciate your concern, Dayun interrupted gently, but we've got things under control. Our defense systems are quite adequate. Thank you again for visiting. Please feel free to contact us through proper diplomatic channels if you'd like to establish relations as equals. The transmission ended. Hyan Wu stared at the blank screen, his mouth slightly open. In 31st contact missions, nothing like this had ever happened. No species refused the Council. It was unthinkable, sir, his communications officer asked quietly. What do we do? Hyan Wu had no answer. He was supposed to return with new Council members, grateful and awed by their first glimpse of galactic civilization. Instead, he'd been politely dismissed like a door-to-door salesman. Take us back to Council space, he finally said. The Chancellor needs to hear about this immediately. As the fleet turned to leave, sensors detected something that made the tactical officer gasp. 3 human ships had appeared behind them. Not through normal space travel. They'd simply appeared as if they'd materialized out of nothing. They're not threatening us, the tactical officer reported. Just watching, making sure we leave. Hyan Wu looked at the pursuing ships on his screen. They were smaller than his flagship, but somehow more menacing. Humanity hadn't just reached the threshold. They'd gone far beyond it, beyond anything the Council had expected, and they didn't need the Council at all. The implications of that terrified him more than any weapon ever could. Ji-Wan sat in her office deep within Council Intelligence Headquarters, reviewing Admiral Hyan Wu's report for the 5th time. Each reading made her more uncomfortable. No species declined Council membership. It simply didn't happen. Something was wrong. And as Intelligence Director, it was her job to find out what. They're hiding something, she muttered to herself. They have to be. She pulled up the files on humanity's technological progression. The numbers didn't make sense. Most species developed steadily, with predictable advances over millennia. Humans had explosive growth, periods of rapid acceleration that defied normal patterns. Either they were lucky beyond measure, or they were more capable than any species the Council had encountered. Ji-Wan didn't believe in luck. She activated her secure communication system and contacted her top field operative. Sang-Ho, I need surveillance on the human colonies. Deep surveillance. I want to know everything about their capabilities. Sang-Ho appeared on her screen, his expression serious. The stealth probes, Director? Yes. Deploy 15 of them across human space. I want constant monitoring of their colonies, shipyards, and research stations. The probes have served us for 10,000 years without detection. If humans are as primitive as they should be, they'll never know we're watching. And if they're not primitive? Sang-Ho asked carefully. Then we need to know that even more urgently, Ji-Wan replied. Deploy immediately. 48 hours later, Ji-Wan was woken by an emergency alert at 3 in the morning. She stumbled to her communication console, still half asleep. Sang-Ho's face filled the screen and he looked worried. Director, we have a problem. What kind of problem? All 15 stealth probes have been detected, tagged, and intercepted by human vessels. Ji-Wan felt suddenly very awake. That's impossible. Our stealth technology is undetectable. We've used it on hundreds of species, and no one has ever. I'm sending you the footage now, Sang-ho interrupted. The video feed showed one of their stealth probes drifting through space near a human colony. To any normal sensor, it would be invisible, generating no emissions and bending light around itself. The Council's best scientists had spent 1,000 years perfecting the technology. Then a human ship appeared. It wasn't searching or scanning. It simply appeared next to the probe as if it had known exactly where to look. A beam of soft blue light touched the probe, and a moment later, a message was transmitted directly to it. A human voice spoke in perfect Council standard language. Unknown surveillance device, you are in human territory without authorization. Please power down your systems and prepare to be escorted to the nearest diplomatic station. We mean you no harm, but we cannot allow unauthorized surveillance. Please comply within 60 seconds. They detected it instantly, Ji-won whispered, not through luck or accident. They knew exactly where it was. The video continued. One by one, all 15 probes received the same treatment. The human ships weren't aggressive. They were almost gentle in their approach, like teachers correcting students who'd made an innocent mistake. But the message was clear. Humanity knew the probes were there, knew how to find them, and could neutralize them effortlessly. There's more, Sang-ho said grimly. He pulled up another transmission. This one showed a human woman in formal diplomatic attire. Ji-won recognized her from the database. Dayun, the commander who had dismissed Admiral Hyan-woo. Greetings to the Galactic Council, Dayun said, her tone polite but firm. We've recovered 15 surveillance devices from our territory. We understand you may be curious about us and we don't take offense. However, we would appreciate if future information gathering was conducted through proper diplomatic channels. Spying on neighbors is generally considered impolite. The transmission included detailed technical schematics. Ji-won's breath caught as she studied them. The humans weren't just complaining. They were showing the Council exactly how they detected the undetectable probes. They're using quantum field manipulation, Ji-won said aloud, her mind racing. They're detecting the distortions our probes create in the quantum foam of space-time. We didn't even know that was possible. There's more, Sang-ho said quietly. He pulled up another document. They've sent us their detection methodology, including suggestions for how we could improve our stealth technology to avoid quantum signature detection. They're giving us advice on how to spy on them better. Ji-won almost laughed. It was absurd. The humans had caught them spying, neutralized their best technology, and then offered helpful tips. It was either the ultimate insult or a genuine attempt at being friendly. She suspected it was both. Director, Sang-ho continued, if they can detect our probes this easily, what else can they detect? Our fleet movements? Our communication networks? Our defense installations? That was the question that terrified Ji-won most. The stealth probes represented the Council's most advanced surveillance technology. If humans could spot them effortlessly, then nothing the Council had was truly hidden from human eyes. She immediately called an emergency meeting of the Council Security Committee. 20 representatives gathered in the secure conference room within an hour. Ji-won presented her findings, watching their faces change from confidence to concern to fear. This is a security crisis, declared one representative. If they can see through our stealth technology, they could strike at us without warning. Or defend against us without difficulty, another added grimly. Commander Sang-ho stepped forward. He'd been in charge of Council security forces for 20 years, and he'd never looked this uncomfortable. With respect, I recommend immediate military containment. We need to establish a defensive perimeter around human space before they expand further. You want to threaten them? Ji-won asked. I want to contain them, Sang-ho corrected. Deploy enough ships to make them think twice about expansion. Show strength, establish boundaries. It's what we've always done with potentially dangerous species. And if they ignore our boundaries? Ji-won asked. What then? The room fell silent. No one had an answer. Hye-won, the Council's chief scientist, spoke up. She was ancient even by Council standards, having served for 5 centuries. Her voice carried weight. I've been analyzing the technical data the humans sent us. Their quantum field sensors aren't just slightly better than ours. They're operating on principles we thought were purely theoretical. They've solved problems that our best physicists have worked on for millennia. She pulled up comparative data on the screens around the room. Their ships don't use conventional FTL drives because they don't need to. They're manipulating space-time itself. creating localized distortions that let them effectively teleport short distances. Their energy generation is orders of magnitude more efficient than ours, and their computing power suggests they've built quantum processors that operate at scales we can't achieve. What are you saying? Chancellor Vorthek asked, his ancient voice heavy with understanding. I'm saying they're not behind us technologically, Haywan replied. In several key areas they're ahead of us, significantly ahead. Another silence filled the room, this one deeper and more uncomfortable than before. The Galactic Council had existed for 10,000 years. They were the pinnacle of galactic civilization, the masters of technology and knowledge. Every species they encountered was brought into the fold, taught and guided until they reached an acceptable level of development. But humanity didn't need teaching. They didn't need guidance. They had already surpassed the teachers, so what do we do? Someone asked quietly. Jiwan looked around the room at the assembled representatives. For the first time in Council history, no one had an answer. Military containment seemed foolish when the enemy might have superior weapons. Economic pressure was pointless when humans were already self-sufficient. Diplomatic isolation would only hurt the Council, not humanity. We adapt, Jiwan finally said. For 10,000 years, we've been the apex of galactic civilization. We may need to accept that our position is changing. Humanity isn't a species we can control or guide. They're going to do what they want, go where they want, and develop however they choose. That's unacceptable, Sangho snapped. We can't just let them. We don't have a choice, Jiwan interrupted. They're not asking our permission. They're being polite about it, but they've made it clear. They'll be friendly neighbors if we want, but they won't be subordinates. We can either accept that reality or fight a war we might not win. Chancellor Vorthek raised an appendage calling for silence. Director Jiwan is correct. We will not attempt further covert surveillance. From this point forward, all contact with humanity will be through official diplomatic channels. Commander Sangho, stand down your containment plans. We will not threaten them. Then what will we do? Sangho demanded. Vorthek's ancient eyes seemed to look into the distance, seeing something others couldn't. We will watch. We will learn, and we will hope that when humanity reaches its full potential, they remember that we chose friendship over fear. Chancellor Vorthek's flagship approached Nova Terra, humanity's newest capital world. The ship was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, built to impress and intimidate. It had served that purpose well for 300 years. Every species that saw it understood immediately the power and majesty of the Galactic Council. Vorthek watched the human world grow larger on the view screen. From orbit, Nova Terra looked peaceful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It could have been Earth itself. But surrounding the planet was a ring of orbital stations unlike anything he'd seen before. They hung in perfect geometric patterns, connected by shimmering energy fields that probably served as both defense and transportation. They're hailing us, Chancellor, the communications officer reported. Put them through. A human man appeared on screen. He was young by Council standards, perhaps 40 standard years old. He wore formal diplomatic attire and smiled warmly. Chancellor Vorthek, welcome to Nova Terra. I'm Ambassador Kyung-Soo. We're honored by your visit. The honor is mine, Vorthek replied, giving the traditional council greeting. I come with an offer of friendship and alliance. Please land at the coordinates we're transmitting. We've prepared quarters for you and your delegation. We have much to discuss. The meeting took place in a conference room with windows overlooking Nova Terra's capital city. Vorthek had to admit the humans built beautifully. The city below blended nature and technology seamlessly, with parks and forests woven between elegant towers. Vorthek's full diplomatic corps attended. 40 representatives from across council space, each one an expert in first contact and alliance building. They'd prepared for weeks, crafting an offer no species could refuse. Kyung-Soo sat across from them with only 3 human advisors. The size difference alone should have intimidated him. It didn't. Ambassador, Vorthek began, the Galactic Council has stood for 10,000 years. In that time, we have brought 10,000 species into our alliance. We have maintained peace across millions of star systems. We have shared knowledge, technology, and resources to lift up every species that joins us. Today, I offer humanity full membership in this grand alliance. He activated a holographic display showing the extent of Council territory. Thousands of star systems, hundreds of species, all working together under Council guidance. Full membership, Vorthek continued, means immediate access to all Council technologies. Our medical databases could extend human lifespans by centuries. Our agricultural systems could feed billions with minimal resources. Our defense networks would protect human worlds from any threat. We offer free trade across 10,000 civilized worlds, diplomatic protection, and a seat at the table where galactic policy is decided. He paused, letting the magnitude of the offer sink in. We are also prepared to fast-track humanity's development. Normally, new species serve a probationary period, but we recognize your advanced state. We offer you a permanent seat on the Council itself, equal voice in all decisions. This is unprecedented for a species so young, but we see your potential. The human advisors whispered among themselves. Kyung-Soo listened to them, nodding occasionally. Finally, he turned back to Vorthek with that same warm smile. Chancellor, that's an incredibly generous offer. We've reviewed the Council's charter, laws, and treaties extensively. We appreciate the stability you've brought to the galaxy. Your achievement in maintaining peace for 10,000 years is remarkable. Then you accept? Vorthek asked, already certain of the answer. No species refused this offer. Unfortunately, we must decline. The room went silent. 40 Council diplomats stared at Kyung-Soo in disbelief. Vorthek felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries, complete confusion. You decline? He managed. Yes, respectfully, Kyung-Soo said. We've studied your governmental structure carefully. While it works well for many species, it wouldn't work for us. Council membership requires accepting certain restrictions on scientific research, particularly in artificial intelligence, genetic modification, and quantum manipulation. We understand why those restrictions exist. The Council has seen these technologies cause problems in the past, but humanity has already advanced beyond those restrictions, and we've done so safely. He pulled up his own holographic display. For example, your laws prohibit artificial intelligence above level 7 complexity due to the AI wars 3,000 years ago. We understand the fear, but humans have integrated level 9 AI into our society for 50 years without incident. Our AI are partners, not threats. Joining the Council would require us to shut down systems that work perfectly well for us. Jae-hee, the Council's economic minister, leaned forward. But surely you see the benefits outweigh the restrictions. Access to Council markets alone would make humanity wealthy beyond measure. Would it? Kyung-Soo asked gently. He pulled up economic projections. We've run the numbers. Council trade operates on a credit system that benefits established members. As newcomers, we'd be importing far more than exporting for at least a century. That creates dependency, which is probably intentional. It helps integrate new species into the Council structure. That's standard practice for young civilizations. Jae-hee protested. But we're not a standard young civilization, Kyung-Soo replied. Our quantum drives are 17% more efficient than Council FTL systems. We've already tested them extensively. Our medical technology can cure diseases that Council physicians consider incurable. We've solved the cellular degradation problem that limits lifespans. And our manufacturing capabilities, thanks to our advanced AI, actually exceed Council production efficiency in most categories. He brought up more data, showing side-by-side comparisons. If we joined the Council, we'd be required to adopt your technological standards. That means downgrading our systems to match yours. We'd have to make our ships slower, our medicine less effective, our AI less capable. We'd be taking steps backward to fit into your framework. You're saying you're better than us? One of the Council diplomats snapped. Not better, Kyung-Soo said carefully. Different. Better at some things, probably behind in others. Your gravitational manipulation for planetary engineering is remarkable. Far beyond anything we've achieved. Your long-range sensors are still superior to ours. There's much we could learn from you, and hopefully much you could learn from us. But that learning needs to happen as equals, not as junior members following senior guidance. Vorthek tried a different approach. What about protection? The galaxy is dangerous. Pirates, hostile species, cosmic hazards. The Council has fleets positioned throughout known space to respond to threats. Without membership, you're vulnerable. We appreciate the concern, Kyung-Soo said, but our defense systems are adequate. In fact, we've detected and tracked every Council ship that entered our territory in the past 6 months. We don't mean that as a threat, just a statement of fact. We can defend ourselves. You've detected our scout ships, Vorthek asked, surprised. Those ships use the same stealth technology as the probes. All of them, Kyung-Soo confirmed. We've also mapped your defensive installations within 20 light-years of our borders. Again, not a threat. We're simply aware of our surroundings. It's basic security. one of Vorthek's advisors whispered urgently in his ear. The Chancellor listened, then looked back at Kyung-soo with new understanding. You're not afraid of us. No, Kyung-soo agreed. Should we be? No, Vorthek said slowly. But every other species has been. When they first see our ships, our technology, our reach across the galaxy, they feel small. They feel vulnerable. They want our protection because they know they can't protect themselves. But you don't feel that way. We respect the Council's achievements, Kyung-soo said. But fear isn't a good foundation for alliance. Neither is dependency. We'd rather be friends than subjects, partners than protégés. Vorthek sat back, his massive form settling into the chair. In 10,000 years of Council history, this had never happened. Species begged to join. They competed for membership. They saw the Council as the ultimate achievement, the goal of civilization. But humanity saw it as just another government, one they could evaluate and decline. What do you want from us? Vorthek asked finally. Friendship, Kyung-soo replied simply. Trade, if terms are fair. Cultural exchange. Scientific collaboration between equals. Perhaps mutual defense if needed. We're not isolationists, Chancellor. We want to be part of the galactic community. We just don't want to subordinate ourselves to it. The Council doesn't know how to have equals, Vorthek admitted. For 10,000 years we've been supreme. We guide, we lead, we protect. We don't partner with species at our level because there have never been species at our level. Maybe it's time to learn, Kyung-soo suggested gently. The galaxy is vast. There's room for more than one approach to civilization. The Council's way has worked wonderfully for most species, but it's not the only way. Perhaps humanity can show you a different path, one where strength doesn't mean dominance, where advancement doesn't mean superiority, where friendship doesn't require submission. Vorthek looked at the young human ambassador for a long moment. Then slowly he began to laugh. It was a deep rumbling sound that shook the room. You're either incredibly wise or incredibly foolish. I'm not sure which. The emergency alert reached Chancellor Vorthek in the middle of the night. He rushed to the Council chamber still in his sleep clothing, something he hadn't done in 2 centuries. Other Council members were arriving just as disheveled, their expressions panicked. Someone explain, Vorthek demanded as he took his seat. HFY, the chief scientist, brought up astronomical data on the main display. A massive object appeared, highlighted in red. A neutron star, Rogue. It's on a collision course with the Theris system. The room erupted in voices. Theris was one of the oldest Council systems, home to 6 billion citizens across 3 inhabited worlds. It housed universities, research centers, historical sites dating back 8,000 years. Losing Theris would be like cutting out the Council's heart. How long do we have? Vorthek asked, his voice cutting through the chaos. 4 months, HFY replied quietly. We detected it late. It's moving faster than standard neutron stars, probably accelerated by a gravity slingshot around a black hole 3 centuries ago. By the time we identified it as a threat, it was already too close. Can we evacuate? Not enough time. We'd need at least a year to move 6 billion people, maybe 2 years. And where would they go? 6 billion refugees would strain every system in the Council. Sang-ho stood up, his military bearing sharp despite being woken from sleep. Can we destroy it? Or divert it? HFY shook her head. A neutron star has a mass up to twice our sun, compressed into a sphere 20 kilometers across. It's one of the densest objects in the universe. We don't have weapons powerful enough to destroy it, and we don't have engines powerful enough to move it. The energy required would be astronomical, so we just watch 6 billion people die? Someone asked, voice breaking. Silence fell over the chamber. 10,000 years of civilization, countless technological achievements, and they were powerless against a simple astronomical event. The neutron star didn't care about their laws, their fleets, or their pride. It would smash into Theris and obliterate everything they'd built there. Begin evacuation anyway, Vorthek finally ordered. Save who we can. And get our best scientists working on solutions. Every idea, no matter how unlikely. We have 4 months. Use them. For 8 weeks, the Council tried everything. They attempted to use massive gravitational generators to deflect the neutron star. The generators burned out without making a measurable difference. They tried using antimatter weapons to create a counterpush. The weapons were like throwing pebbles at a mountain. They even considered using the Council's entire fleet to create a solar sail effect. The calculations showed it wouldn't work. Meanwhile, evacuation ships worked around the clock. They managed to evacuate 300 million people, barely 5% of Theris's population. The rest watched the sky, knowing death was coming and that the mighty Galactic Council couldn't save them. Vorthek sat in his office, staring at evacuation reports. He'd barely slept in weeks. They'd tried 23 different plans. All had failed. In 6 weeks, the neutron star would hit Theris, and 6 billion people would die on his watch. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. "Enter," he said tiredly. Jiwan stepped in and she looked excited. "Chancellor, we've received a transmission from human space." "Not now, Director. I don't have time for—" "They know about Theris," Jiwan interrupted. "And they're offering to help." Vorthek looked up sharply. "How do they know?" "Apparently their long-range sensors detected the neutron star. They've been monitoring it and they calculated its trajectory. They know it's going to hit Theris." "Did they contact us for permission to intervene?" Vorthek asked, part of him still clinging to the idea that the Council was in charge. "No," Jiwan said with a slight smile. "They're already there. A fleet of 40 human ships arrived at Theris 3 hours ago. They've started deploying equipment around the neutron star's projected path." Vorthek stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "They're already there? Without asking? Without authorization?" "Apparently they felt time was more important than protocol," Jiwan replied. "Should I tell them to leave?" Vorthek wanted to say yes. Pride demanded it. The Council should solve its own problems, but pride wouldn't save 6 billion lives. "No, let them work. Monitor everything they do. If they have a solution, I want to know about it." He rushed to the Council chamber, where screens were already showing live feeds from Theris system. Human ships were indeed there. Strange, sleek vessels moving with impossible grace. They were deploying large devices along the neutron star's path, positioning them with mathematical precision. "What are those?" Sangho asked, studying the devices. "Unknown," Heywan replied. She was frantically running analysis on the sensor data. "They're generating gravitational fields, but not like anything we can produce. The field strength is enormous and they're shaping it somehow, creating directed gravitational waves." On screen, a human appeared. He wore a captain's uniform and looked calm despite what he was attempting. "This is Captain Dong Hyun of the human vessel Prometheus. We're coordinating the gravitational displacement operation. For anyone monitoring, please maintain a safe distance. We're going to alter the neutron star's trajectory." "Alter it?" Sangho muttered. "That's impossible." But the humans were already working. More devices deployed, creating a network of gravitational generators around the neutron star's path. They formed a precise geometric pattern, each device positioned at calculated points in 3-dimensional space. Yuna, the human chief engineer, appeared in a split-screen feed. She was younger than the captain, her face tight with concentration. "Network online. All generators synchronized, beginning gravitational shaping in 30 seconds. "This is insane," Heywan whispered. "The power requirements alone. Our entire fleet couldn't generate that much energy." "Where are they getting it from?" The device is activated. On sensors, space itself seemed to bend around them. The gravitational fields they generated were visible as distortions in the fabric of space-time. The fields began to pulse in perfect synchronization, creating waves of gravitational force. The neutron star, an object so dense that a teaspoon of its matter would weigh billions of tons, began to change course. Not quickly, not dramatically, but measurably. Its trajectory shifted slightly, degree by degree. "It's working," someone whispered in the council chamber. For 3 weeks, the humans maintained their operation. Their ships worked in constant rotation, with fresh vessels arriving as others departed for resupply. The gravitational generators ran continuously, never faltering. The calculations required to coordinate them were staggering. Every generator had to pulse at exactly the right moment, creating wave interference patterns that pushed against the neutron star's momentum. Yuna barely slept, managing the operation from the Prometheus. When one generator started to overheat, she recalculated the entire network's output pattern in minutes to compensate. When unexpected stellar winds threatened to disrupt the gravitational waves, she adapted the pulse frequency on the fly. The council's scientists watched in awe. The mathematics involved was beyond most of them. The humans were using quantum computers to run simulations thousands of times per second, adjusting their approach constantly to account for minor variations. They're not just powerful, HFY said softly to Vorthek as they watched. They're precise. They're treating this neutron star like a surgeon treats a patient. Every action calculated, every adjustment measured. This isn't brute force. This is artistry. The neutron star's path curved gradually. Week by week, its trajectory shifted. The calculations showed it would miss Theris by a comfortable margin. 6 billion people would live. When the operation concluded, Captain Dong-hyun sent a final transmission. Trajectory alteration complete. The neutron star will pass Theris system with approximately 200,000 kilometers clearance. All residents are safe. The gravitational generators will remain in place for another month to ensure stability. Then we'll retrieve them. Prometheus out. Vorthek activated communications immediately. Captain Dong-hyun, this is Chancellor Vorthek of the Galactic Council. On behalf of 6 billion grateful citizens, thank you. You've saved an entire system. We are in your debt. Name your price. Whatever you want, it's yours. There was a pause, then Dong-hyun reappeared on screen. He looked tired but pleased. Price? Chancellor, we don't want payment. People were in danger. We had the capability to help. That's enough reason. You must want something, Vorthek insisted. Technology, territory, resources, a seat on the council, anything. What you've done is beyond price, but we must offer something. Dong-hyun smiled slightly. If you really want to do something, Ambassador Kyung-soo mentioned that humanity would benefit from access to your astronomical database. You've been mapping the galaxy for 10,000 years. That data would help us identify and track hazards like this neutron star more effectively. If you're willing to share that information, we'd appreciate it. Vorthek stared at the screen. They'd saved 6 billion lives, demonstrated technological capabilities that exceeded the Council's by orders of magnitude, and they wanted astronomical data that cost the Council nothing to share. That's all? He asked. That's all, Dong-hyun confirmed. We help because it's right, not because it's profitable. That's just how we operate. 2 years after the Theris rescue, the Council chamber buzzed with tense conversation. 23 human colonies now dotted 14 star systems. Human trade ships moved freely through galactic space, welcomed at most ports not by Council decree but by individual choice. Species across the galaxy sought human technology, negotiating directly rather than going through Council channels. The old order was changing, and not everyone was happy about it. They're undermining everything we've built, declared Ambassador Ren of the Vortan hegemony. He was a warrior by nature, his species having joined the Council through military conquest before being civilized by Council law. Human ships ignore our traffic protocols. Their traders bypass our regulated markets. They make agreements with Council members without our approval. This cannot continue. Murmurs of agreement rippled through some sections of the chamber. Other representatives looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Vorthek raised an appendage for silence. What do you propose, Ambassador Ren? Military intervention, Ren said bluntly. A blockade of human space. Economic sanctions. Make it clear that operating in Council space means following Council rules. Show strength before they become too powerful to stop. I believe they're already too powerful to stop. Ji-won interjected from her seat. Our intelligence suggests human defensive capabilities have only improved. Any military action would be catastrophic, likely for us. Then we surrender? Ren demanded. Except that a species barely 200 years into spaceflight is now dictating terms to a council that's existed for 10,000 years. They're not dictating anything, Sang-ho said quietly. The military commander had changed his views considerably in 2 years. They're simply existing, trading freely, exploring openly, helping where they can. They're not attacking us or undermining us. They're just not obeying us. Which is the same thing, Ren snapped. Is it? HFY asked. The ancient scientist stood slowly. I've been part of this council for 5 centuries. I've seen dozens of species join us, each one grateful for our guidance. But perhaps we've grown too accustomed to gratitude. Perhaps we've forgotten that guidance should be offered, not imposed. You defend them? Ren asked incredulously. I'm simply observing reality, HFY replied. Humanity doesn't need us. They've made that clear through action, not words. Their technology rivals or exceeds ours in most areas. Their society functions without our input. Their economy thrives without our markets. Fighting them won't change these facts. It will only make us enemies of the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. So we do nothing? Another representative asked. We adapt, Vorthek said firmly. For 10,000 years, the Council has been the center of galactic civilization. Every species that achieved spaceflight eventually joined us. We became accustomed to our supremacy, our role as teachers and guides. But that era is ending. He activated the central display showing a map of known space. Human territory glowed in blue, spreading steadily outward. Council space surrounded it in gold, vast but no longer all-encompassing. Humanity has changed the equation, Vorthek continued. They are not beneath us, and military action won't put them there. We have two choices. We can fight them and likely lose, or we can accept them as equals and build something new. I propose the latter, equals. Ren scoffed. They're children playing with technologies they barely understand. They saved Theris, Jiwan reminded him. They solved a problem we couldn't. They're not children. The director is correct, Vorthek said. I'm calling for a vote. We will offer humanity a new category of relationship. Not membership, not subordination, but partnership. Associated partner status, recognizing their independence while formalizing cooperation. We will negotiate trade agreements as equals, establish diplomatic protocols between sovereign powers, and create mutual defense pacts that benefit both parties. This is unprecedented, someone protested. So is humanity. Vorthek replied. All in favor? The vote took an hour. Many representatives struggled with the concept. The council didn't have equals, had never had equals. But slowly, reluctantly, the votes came in. When the count finished, the measure passed by a narrow margin. Inform Ambassador Kyung-soo, Vorthek ordered. Invite him to address the council and negotiate terms. 3 weeks later, Kyung-soo stood before the assembled council. He looked the same as he had 2 years ago, calm and confident, showing neither arrogance nor submission. Ambassador, Vorthek began formally, the Galactic Council recognizes that our previous offers did not suit humanity's needs. We propose a new framework, associated partner status. You would maintain complete independence, make your own laws, control your own territory. But we would formalize our relationship through trade agreements, diplomatic protocols, and mutual defense pacts. We would share information freely, coordinate on galactic hazards, and support each other as allies rather than as superior and subordinate. Kyung-soo listened carefully, reviewing the documents on his datapad. He conferred quietly with his advisors for several minutes. Finally, he looked up at Vorthek. On behalf of humanity, I accept, with some conditions. Name them, Vorthek said. First, all agreements must be bilateral. Neither side can impose terms on the other. Second, technology sharing happens by choice, not obligation. We'll share what we're comfortable sharing and you do the same. Third, if either party requests assistance, the other responds in good faith, but neither is obligated to actions that contradict their values or interests. Finally, this partnership includes a clause allowing peaceful separation if either party feels it's no longer beneficial. You want an exit clause? Ren asked, sounding offended. You don't trust us? Trust is earned over time, Kyung-soo replied diplomatically. We're building a new kind of relationship here. It makes sense to include safeguards. If this partnership works well, we'll never need the exit clause, but having it means both sides enter freely, not feeling trapped. Vorthek considered the conditions. They were reasonable, perhaps more reasonable than humanity needed to be. They could have demanded much more from their position of strength. Agreed, Vorthek said. All conditions are acceptable. The formal agreements took weeks to negotiate. Trade protocols were established that favored neither party. Diplomatic embassies were opened on both sides. Scientific exchange programs were created. Mutual defense pacts were drawn up that committed both parties to assist if either faced unprovoked attack. Throughout the negotiations, Kyung-soo proved to be a skilled diplomat. He pushed for fair terms but never tried to dominate discussions. He listened to council concerns and found compromises. By the end, even skeptics like Ren had to admit the human was reasonable. The formal signing ceremony happened 3 months later. Representatives from across council space attended. Human delegates arrived in sleek ships that still drew admiring looks from council engineers. The ceremony was broadcast across 10,000 worlds. Vorthek and Kyung-soo stood together before the cameras, signing documents that changed galactic history. For the first time, the council had a partner rather than a member. For the first time, they acknowledged another power as equal. To new beginnings, Vorthek said, offering the traditional council handshake. To friendship between equals, Kyung-soo replied, accepting it. As celebrations began, Ji-won found herself on an observation deck overlooking the main plaza. She watched humans and council citizens mingling below, talking and laughing. They looked comfortable together, not as superior and inferior, but as different cultures meeting as peers. Sang-ho joined her at the window. I was wrong, he admitted. 2 years ago I wanted to contain them militarily. I saw them as a threat. And now? Ji-won asked. Now I see them as what we needed, Sang-ho said. The council has been stagnant for centuries. We stopped innovating because we thought we'd reached the peak. Humanity showed us we were wrong. They pushed us to be better, to think differently, to grow. 6 months after the formal partnership, human scientist Won Shik worked alongside Council Chief Scientist Hai Wan in a research station orbiting a white dwarf star. They were collaborating on a project to map dark matter distribution across the galaxy, combining human quantum sensors with Council long-range detection arrays. The readings are remarkable, Hai Wan said, studying the data. Your sensors detect dark matter interactions we didn't know existed. Your detection arrays give us range we can't achieve alone, Won Shik replied. Together we're seeing things neither of us could see separately. Hai Wan paused her work and looked at the young human. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. When your people refused council membership 2 years ago, did you worry you were making a mistake? Did you fear we'd respond with hostility? Won Shik smiled. My grandmother used to say something. She said the only people you should fear are those who need you to be beneath them. People secure in themselves don't need others to be lesser. When you offered us membership as equals instead of as juniors, we knew we'd made the right choice in waiting. Your grandmother sounds wise. She was, Won Shik agreed. She also said the council would be good partners once you stopped trying to be parents. Looks like she was right about that too. Hai Wan laughed, a sound she hadn't made often in her 5 centuries. I think I would have liked your grandmother.